The starship Wandering Star moved quietly through the darkness of space. It was a big ship, almost a kilometer long, carrying 2,400 people to a new home on a planet called New Eden. Captain Daniel Cruz stood on the bridge, watching the stars pass by on the main screen. He had made this journey many times before, but he never got tired of looking at the universe. The year was 2347, and humanity had spread across many star systems. They were known as peaceful traders and explorers. They made friends easily with other species and rarely fought wars. The galaxy was full of different aliens, and humans got along with most of them. In the lower decks of the ship, Maria Santos was teaching a class of 30 children. She was a kind woman with dark hair and a warm smile. The children loved her because she made learning fun. Today, she was teaching them about the history of Earth, showing them pictures of blue oceans and green forests. "Will New Eden look like this?" asked a little girl named Sophie. Maria smiled. "It will be even more beautiful. You'll see mountains and rivers and flowers of every color." The children cheered. They were excited about their new home. Their parents had signed up for the colony program to give them a better life. New Eden had clean air, open spaces, and room for everyone to grow. On the bridge, something appeared on the sensors. First Officer Nathan Cole frowned and looked closer at his screen. "Captain, I'm picking up several ships ahead. They're not in our database." Daniel walked over to look. The ships were strange shapes, like twisted insects made of metal. There were 12 of them, and they were big. "Try to make contact," he said. Nathan sent a greeting message in all known languages. For a long minute, there was no response. Then the alien ships began to move, spreading out to surround the Wandering Star. "They're blocking our path," said Security Commander Lisa Wang. She was a small woman but tough as steel. "I don't like this, Captain." Before Daniel could respond, the alien ships opened fire. The Wandering Star shook as energy weapons hit its shields. Alarms started screaming throughout the ship. People fell to the floor as the vessel rocked from side to side. "Shields are failing," shouted Nathan. "They're too powerful." Daniel grabbed the communication system. "All hands, this is the captain. We are under attack. Everyone get to the escape pods." I repeat, everyone get to the escape pods. But it was already too late. The alien ships attached themselves to the Wandering Star like parasites. Cutting beams sliced through the hull, and within minutes, the invaders were inside. Maria heard the screams first. She gathered her students and pushed them toward the back of the classroom. "Stay behind me," she whispered. "Stay quiet." The door exploded inward, and Maria saw the aliens for the first time. They were tall, almost 3 meters, with bodies like insects. They had 4 arms, hard shells covering their skin, and eyes that glowed with a sickly yellow light. They made clicking sounds as they communicated with each other. A parent rushed forward to protect the children. One of the aliens raised a weapon and shot him. He fell and did not get up. Maria covered Sophie's eyes and pulled the children further back. The aliens were not interested in killing the adults. She realized they were looking for something else. Their glowing eyes scanned the room, and when they saw the children, they made excited clicking sounds. "No," Maria whispered. "No, please." The aliens moved fast. They grabbed children with their 4 arms, ignoring the adults who tried to stop them. Anyone who fought back was killed without hesitation. Maria watched in horror as her students were taken, screaming and crying for help. She grabbed Sophie and 5 other children and ran. She knew the ship well and found a cargo compartment that was hidden behind some storage containers. She pushed the children inside and climbed in after them. "Don't make a sound," she breathed. "No matter what you hear, don't make a sound." Through a small gap in the containers, Maria watched the aliens search the ship. They were methodical and efficient. They took every child they found. The sounds of crying and screaming echoed through the corridors, and each cry felt like a knife in Maria's heart. On the bridge, Nathan Cole was the last officer alive. Daniel had been killed trying to protect a group of families. Lisa Huang had died fighting, taking 3 aliens with her before she fell. Nathan was bleeding from a wound in his side, but he had one job left to do. He crawled to the communication console and recorded a message. He described the attack, the aliens, and what they were doing. He included all the sensor data and everything he had observed. Then he set the message to broadcast on all emergency frequencies aimed at human space. "This is First Officer Nathan Cole of the Wandering Star," he said, his voice weak but clear. "We have been attacked by an unknown species. They are taking our children. Repeat, they are taking our children. All of them. Please, someone help us. Please save our children." An alien found him before he finished speaking. Nathan looked up at the creature with hatred in his eyes. "You have no idea what you just started," he said. The alien killed him, but the message was already flying through space at the speed of light. The attack lasted 2 hours. When it was over, the aliens left the Wandering Star drifting and dead. They took 340 children with them. Some adults survived by hiding or playing dead. Maria and her 6 children stayed in the cargo compartment for hours after the aliens left, too scared to move. When rescue ships finally arrived 3 days later, they found 47 survivors. Maria was among them, still holding Sophie's hand. The little girl had not spoken since the attack. None of the children had. The rescue workers were gentle and kind. They wrapped the survivors in blankets and gave them food and water. A doctor named Kevin Park examined Maria's injuries and asked her what happened. Maria told him everything. She described the aliens, their ships, their methods. She told him about the children being taken, about the screams, about the bodies of parents who died trying to protect their babies. When she finished, Kevin's face was pale. He had heard stories of alien attacks before, but nothing like this. Nothing this evil. "They took our children," Maria said, her voice breaking. "They took all our children." Kevin held her hand. "We'll find them," he said. "I promise you, we'll find them." But even as he spoke, he wondered if any promise would be enough. Because somewhere in the darkness of space, 340 human children were in the hands of monsters, and no one knew where they had been taken or why the Wandering Star floated in the void. A broken tomb carrying the message that would change everything. Nathan Cole's final words traveled across the stars, reaching Earth, reaching the colonies, reaching every human who could hear. And when they heard, something ancient woke up inside them. Something that had slept since the days when humans lived in caves and protected their young from wolves and lions. Something that would shake the galaxy to its core. The Valkyrie had made a terrible mistake. They just didn't know it yet. Admiral Grace Kim was eating breakfast when her communicator buzzed. She was 62 years old and had served in the United Earth Defense Force for 40 years. She had seen many things in her career, but nothing prepared her for what she was about to hear. She pressed the button and listened to Nathan Cole's final message. When it ended, she played it again. Then she played it a third time. Her coffee grew cold in her cup. Her hands began to shake. Grace had 2 grandchildren. They were 5 and 7 years old, and she loved them more than anything in the universe. As she listened to the screams in the background of the message, she imagined them in place of those children. Something cold and hard formed in her chest. She made calls. Lots of calls. Within an hour, every admiral in the fleet had heard the message. Within 2 hours, the president of the United Earth Federation had called an emergency meeting. Within 6 hours, the message was playing on every news channel across human space. The reaction was unlike anything in human history. People stopped what they were doing and listened. Factories went silent. Schools emptied. Families gathered around screens and heard the desperate voice of a dying man begging someone to save the children. And then came the anger. It started as a low rumble, like thunder far away. Messages flooded military recruitment centers. People lined up around buildings, demanding to join the fleet. Old soldiers dug out their uniforms. Young people left their jobs and headed to the nearest base. Parents looked at their own children and felt something burning in their hearts. Grace watched the numbers climb. In the first day, 10 million people volunteered for military service. By the end of the week, that number had reached 50 million. There were not enough ships, not enough weapons, not enough uniforms for everyone who wanted to fight. The Galactic Council sent a message requesting a meeting. They were a group of representatives from all the major species in the galaxy, and they had kept peace for thousands of years. Ambassador Victor Reyes was chosen to speak for humanity. Victor was a tall man with gray hair and calm eyes. He had spent his life building bridges between species. He believed in diplomacy and patience. But as he stood before the council, something different showed in his face. "We have received your request for calm," Victor said. "We have heard your calls for restraint, and we have decided to ignore them." The council chamber erupted in noise. Species that had never agreed on anything all spoke at once, warning humanity about the consequences of war. The Valkyrie were powerful, they said. They had existed for 40,000 years. They controlled 17 star systems and commanded a fleet of over 10,000 warships. They had crushed other species who challenged them. Humanity was young, with only 300 years of space travel. They could not win this war. Victor waited for the noise to die down. Then he spoke again. "You don't understand what has happened," he said. "This is not about territory. This is not about resources or power or pride. They took our children. They took them from their parents' arms. They took them screaming and crying. And we know what they do with children." The council was silent. They knew about the Valkyrie's practices. They had known for centuries. But no one had ever been willing to fight them. The cost was too high. "Every species has a line," Victor continued. "A line that once crossed changes everything. For humans, that line is our children. You evolved differently. You have different instincts. But we are mammals. We carry our babies inside us. We feed them from our bodies. We protect them until they can protect themselves. It is not a choice. It is who we are." He looked around the chamber at the alien faces watching him. The Valkyrie crossed that line. And now there is nothing in this universe that will stop us from making them pay. An elder member of the council spoke up. His species was ancient, older even than the Valkyrie. "Ambassador, we urge you to consider peace. War with the Valkyrie will cost millions of human lives. Your species is too young to survive such a conflict." Victor smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "You misunderstand. We are not asking for permission. We are not seeking allies. We are informing you of what is about to happen. The Valkyrie took human children, and for that crime, their species will face the full weight of human fury. Whether we survive is not the question. Whether they survive is the only thing that matters now." He turned and walked out of the council chamber. Behind him, the ancient species watched in silence. Some felt fear. Others felt something they had not felt in millennia. Hope that someone would finally stop the Valkyrie. Back on Earth, Admiral Grace Kim was given command of the largest military operation in human history. She stood before a room full of officers and laid out the plan. "We have one goal," she said. "The complete destruction of the Valkyrie military capability. We will not stop until they can never threaten another child again." Fleet Commander Ryan Torres raised his hand. He was a young man, only 35, but he had proven himself in border conflicts. "Admiral, our fleet is smaller than theirs. Our technology is similar. How do we win?" Grace looked at him with steel in her eyes. "We win because we have something they don't. We have parents. We have grandparents. We have aunts and uncles and cousins who all love those children. Every pilot in our fleet will fight knowing that their own children could be next. Every soldier will push forward knowing that. Retreat means leaving children in the hands of monsters." She pressed a button, and a map of Valkyrie space appeared on the screen. "They think we will fight like we have always fought. Careful, strategic, preserving our forces. They are wrong. We will fight like animals protecting our young. We will accept losses they cannot imagine. We will sacrifice everything because losing is not an option." The room was silent. Every officer understood what she was saying. This was not a war they could lose. This was a war they would win or die trying. Ships began moving toward the border. Hundreds at first, then thousands. Civilian vessels were converted to carry troops. Mining ships were fitted with weapons. Hospital ships prepared for casualties that would number in the millions. Maria Santos watched the news from her hospital bed. She saw the fleets gathering, the soldiers marching, the entire human species mobilizing for war. Sophie sat beside her, still silent, still holding her hand. "They're coming," Maria whispered to the little girl. "They're coming to bring everyone home." Sophie looked at her with empty eyes. She had seen too much. She had lost too many friends. But somewhere deep inside, a tiny spark of hope flickered. The Valkyrie were preparing too. They had received reports about the human response and were confused. Other species had complained after they took children. Some had even tried to fight back. But none had reacted like this. The Valkyrie Queen, ruler of their empire, dismissed the threat. Humans were weak, she said. They were traitors and diplomats. They would make angry noises and then accept reality. They always did. She was wrong. On the border of Valkyrie space, 10,000 human ships waited for the order. In every ship and every crew member burned the same fire. They had seen the message. They had heard the screams. They had looked at their own children and felt the ancient instinct of protection surge through their blood. Admiral Grace Kim gave the order. "All ships advance. Target all Valkyrie military vessels and installations. There will be no warnings. There will be no negotiations. There will be no mercy." The fleet moved forward into enemy space, and the greatest war in galactic history began. The first Valkyrie border world fell in 6 hours. The aliens had expected a traditional battle. Their military planners had studied human tactics for decades. Humans were careful fighters, they believed. They protected their ships and soldiers. They retreated when losses became too high. They valued individual lives. They were wrong about everything. Commander Samantha Bell led the assault on the planet's main defense station. Her squadron of 50 fighters attacked a force 3 times their size. Normal tactics would have called for careful maneuvering, hit-and-run attacks, preservation of forces. Samantha had different orders. "All pilots, weapons free," she said into her communicator. "Engage and destroy. Do not fall back. Do not surrender. Remember why we're here." Her pilots needed no reminder. They flew into the Valkyrie formation like wolves into a flock of sheep. Ships exploded on both sides, but the humans kept coming. When their weapons ran out of ammunition, they rammed their ships into enemy vessels. When their engines failed, they aimed their dying craft at Valkyrie installations. The Valkyrie commanders watched in horror. They had never seen anything like this. These humans fought without fear of death. They accepted losses that would have broken any other force. And they did not stop. The defense station fell. Then the orbital platforms. Then the ground bases. Within 6 hours, the first Valkyrie world was under human control. Fleet Commander Ryan Torres surveyed the battlefield from his flagship, the Eternal Dawn. Wreckage floated everywhere. Human and Valkyrie ships alike had been destroyed. He had lost nearly a third of his forces in the attack. "Casualty report," he said quietly. His aide read the numbers. Thousands dead. Thousands more wounded. Ships that would never fly again. Ryan nodded slowly. "Prepare for the next assault. We move in 12 hours. "Sir," the aide hesitated. "Shouldn't we wait for reinforcements?" Our losses were significant. Ryan turned to look at him. "Every hour we wait is another hour those children spend in Valkyrie hands. We don't wait. We don't rest. We push forward until this is over." The campaign continued like a storm moving across the stars. Human forces attacked world after world, system after system. They suffered terrible losses, but they never stopped. Behind them, more ships arrived every day. For every human vessel destroyed, 2 more took its place. The galaxy watched in stunned silence. Other species had fought wars. They understood violence and conflict. But this was something different. This was not a war for territory or resources. This was a war of extinction being waged by a species that everyone had thought was peaceful and weak. On the 4th month of the campaign, Samantha Bell led a ground assault on a moon orbiting Valkar Prime. Intelligence reports indicated that a processing facility existed there. Nobody wanted to think about what that meant. Her ground forces landed under heavy fire. Valkyrie soldiers defended the facility with everything they had. The battle lasted 3 days, and Samantha lost half her soldiers in the fighting. When they finally broke through the doors, they found the truth. The facility was enormous, stretching deep underground. Room after room after room, each containing horrors that would haunt the soldiers for the rest of their lives. Children were kept in cages, some human, some from other species. The Valkyrie used them for biological experiments. They took samples, ran tests, broke them down to understand their genetic code. Some children were used as hosts for Valkyrie parasites. The young of the Valkyrie needed living hosts to mature, and the children of other species served that purpose. Samantha walked through the facility in silence. Her soldiers followed, some crying, some vomiting, all struggling to understand how any species could do this. They found thousands of children still alive. Many were too damaged to save. Others would need years of care to recover. But some, the newest arrivals, could still be helped. Among them were 37 children from the wandering star. Samantha personally carried a small boy named Peter to the medical ship. He was 5 years old and had not spoken since the attack. He clung to her armor and would not let go. "You're safe now," she whispered to him. "No one will ever hurt you again." The news of the facility spread across human space. People had been angry before. Now they were beyond anger. They were cold and focused and absolutely determined. Admiral Grace Kim reviewed the intelligence reports and made a decision. She contacted the Galactic Council with a single message. "We have found evidence that the Valkyrie have been doing this for over 10,000 years. They have taken children from dozens of species. We are not just fighting for our children anymore. We are fighting for everyone they have ever harmed." The response was unexpected. The Drenari, an ancient species that had remained isolated for centuries, broke their silence. Their ambassador appeared on a communication screen, old and tired and carrying the weight of terrible memories. 700 years ago, the Drenari said, "The Valkyrie took our children too. We tried to fight. We failed. We have carried that shame ever since. We will join you." Other species followed. The Kovathi had lost children 300 years ago. The Malsari had suffered the same fate 1,000 years before that. Species that had been too weak or too scared to fight alone now saw an opportunity. Within weeks, the human fleet was joined by ships from 12 different species. The combined force numbered over 50,000 vessels. But everyone understood that this was still humanity's war. The other species were there to witness and to help, but the humans led the way. Ryan Torres stood on the bridge of his flagship as the Allied fleet prepared for the final push. Behind him, the stars were filled with ships from across the galaxy. "Sir," his communications officer said, "we're receiving a message from the Valkyrie Queen. She wants to negotiate." Ryan laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Tell her that the time for negotiation ended when they took those children. Tell her that we are coming, and nothing in this universe will stop us." The Valkyrie tried to mount a defense. They pulled their remaining ships back to protect their core worlds. They fortified their planets. They prepared for a siege that they hoped would outlast human fury. They did not understand. Human fury was not a fire that would burn out. It was a cold determination that would last until the job was done. In the ruins of the processing facility, Samantha Bell sat with the rescued children. Doctors and counselors worked around the clock to help them recover. Some were responding well. Others stared at nothing, lost in memories too terrible to face. A little girl approached Samantha. She was missing an arm, taken by Valkyrie experiments. "Are they going to hurt us again?" the girl asked. Samantha knelt down to look her in the eyes. "No, sweetheart. They are never going to hurt anyone again. I promise you that." The girl nodded slowly. She did not fully believe it yet. But someday, when the war was over and the Valkyrie were gone, she would understand that Samantha had told her the truth. The final battle was coming. The entire galaxy knew it. And everyone, from the youngest child to the oldest elder, understood that nothing would ever be the same again. Fleets moved toward Valkar Prime. They moved with purpose and patience and absolute certainty. They had come too far and lost too much to fail now. The Valkyrie had taken human children. And now they would pay the price that no species had ever been willing to demand. The end was near. Ambassador Patricia Lane stood before the Galactic Council for the last time. The chamber was full, every species represented. Every eye watching the human woman at the center of the room. 8 months had passed since the attack on the wandering star. In that time, human forces had conquered 14 of the 17 Valkyrie systems. The war was almost over, and Patricia had come to explain why. "You called this meeting to ask us to stop," Patricia said. Her voice was calm but carried across the silent chamber. "You want us to accept a surrender. You think we have proven our point. You believe this has gone far enough." She paused and looked around at the alien faces watching her. "We disagree." The Korvathi ambassador raised a tentacle. "Ambassador Lane, the Valkyrie have been defeated. Their military is broken. They pose no threat anymore. Is this not victory?" Patricia shook her head. "They took our children. They experimented on them. They used them as hosts for their parasites. And we have learned that they have been doing this for 10,000 years. The Valkyrie are not just our enemy. They are the enemy of every species in this galaxy." She pressed a button, and images appeared on the main screen. They showed the processing facilities, the cages, the experiments. They showed children from dozens of species, broken and suffering. The council members looked away, unable to face the horror. "Every species has its line," Patricia continued. "The thing that, if crossed, changes everything. For the Kovathi, it is your home waters. For the Drunari, it is your sacred texts. For the Malsari, it is your hive mothers. Different species, different limits." She looked directly at the assembly. "For humans, it is our children. We are a young species. We evolved on a dangerous world where our babies were helpless and vulnerable. We developed instincts to protect them at any cost. Those instincts are still with us. They are part of who we are. The Volcari ambassador tried to speak, but Patricia raised her hand to stop him. You don't get to speak anymore. Your species had its chance. For 10,000 years, you took children from those weaker than you. You assumed no one would ever stop you. You were wrong. She turned back to the council. We are not doing this for revenge. We are doing this because the Volcari will never change. They see other species as resources. They see children as raw material. If we stop now, they will rebuild. They will wait. And in 100 years or 1,000 years, they will do this again. The ancient elder of the council leaned forward. And what would you have us do, Ambassador? What do you want from us? Patricia smiled sadly. We want nothing from you. We came here today to give you something. A warning. And a promise. She took a deep breath. The warning is this. Every species in this galaxy now knows what humans are capable of. We are kind and peaceful and generous. We trade fairly and keep our promises. But if you harm our children, we will destroy you. Not defeat you. Not punish you. Destroy you. Completely and forever. The chamber was silent. Species that had existed for millions of years felt something they had not felt in ages. Fear of the young species they had dismissed as soft and weak. And the promise is this. We will never harm a child of any species. We will protect them as we protect our own. Any species that threatens children will answer to us. This is not a treaty or an agreement. This is simply who we are. Patricia turned and walked out of the chamber. Behind her, the council sat in stunned silence in the medical facilities orbiting the ruined Volcari systems. Scientist Gregory Park worked with the rescued children. He was a kind man with gentle hands, and the children trusted him. There were thousands of them now from dozens of species. Some were recovering quickly. Others would need years of care. A few were beyond help, their minds too broken by what they had experienced. Gregory sat with a group of human children who had been rescued from the facilities. They were learning to play again, running and laughing in the recreation room. It was strange and wonderful to hear laughter after so much pain. Peter, the boy that Samantha Bell had carried from the facility, approached Gregory. He had finally started speaking again, though only in whispers. Dr. Park, are the bad aliens gone? Gregory knelt down to the boy's level. Almost, Peter. The soldiers are finishing the job now. Soon, they will be gone forever. Peter thought about this. Will they come back? My dad said monsters always come back in stories. Gregory shook his head. Not these monsters. The soldiers are making sure they can never come back. You're safe now, Peter. You'll always be safe. The boy nodded slowly. He was still scared, still damaged, but somewhere inside him, hope was growing. Across the galaxy, other species watched the final stages of the war. Some were horrified by what humans had done. Others were grateful that someone had finally stopped the Volcari. The Melsari. Hive Mother sent a message to Admiral Grace Kim. We lost 3 generations of children to the Volcari before we learned to hide. Thank you for giving us justice. Similar messages came from other species. The Kovathi remembered their lost young. The Drenari finally found peace after centuries of shame. Even species that had never been attacked by the Volcari felt relief that the threat was ending. But not everyone was happy. Some species worried about what humans might do next. If they could destroy the Volcari, what else were they capable of? What if humans decided that another species was a threat? What if they turned that terrible fury on innocent people? Admiral Grace Kim understood these fears. She sent a message to every species in the galaxy. We know what you are thinking. You are afraid of us now. You wonder if we will become the next Valkyrie. Let us make something clear. We did not want this war. We did not enjoy this war. Every death, human or Valkyrie, was a tragedy. But some things cannot be forgiven. Some crimes demand an absolute response. She paused before continuing. We will never harm innocent people. We will never take children. We will never become what we destroyed. We ask only one thing. Remember what happened here. Remember that there are lines that must never be crossed. Remember that the universe has guardians now, and they take their duties seriously. The human fleet surrounded Valkyr Prime. Thousands of ships from a dozen species formed a ring around the Valkyrie homeworld. The final battle was about to begin. Ryan Torres looked at the planet on his screen. It was beautiful in its way, with purple oceans and green continents. Billions of Valkyrie lived there, most of them civilians who had never taken a child, never hurt anyone. Sir, his aide said quietly, the fleet is in position. We're ready to begin the assault. Ryan nodded slowly. He thought about the children in the facilities. He thought about Peter and the others, their lives shattered by Valkyrie cruelty. He thought about Nathan Cole, dying alone on the wandering star, sending his desperate message into the void. Begin the attack, he said. Focus on military targets. Orbital defenses, warship factories, command centers. We're here to end their ability to wage war, not to commit genocide. The final battle for Valkyr Prime had begun. And with it, the fate of an entire species would be decided. The Valkyrie fought with everything they had. They knew this was their last chance. If they lost here, their empire was finished. Ships clashed in the darkness of space. Weapons fired. Explosions lit up the void, but the outcome was never in doubt. The human fleet was too large, too determined, too united in purpose. One by one, the Valkyrie defenses fell. The war was almost over, and a new era was about to begin. The battle for Valkyr Prime lasted 11 days. The Valkyrie fought with desperate fury. They knew what defeat meant. Their military threw everything at the human fleet, ships and soldiers and weapons that had been hidden for emergencies. They fought like a species facing extinction, because that was exactly what they were facing. But it was not enough. Ryan Torres commanded the fleet with cold efficiency. Human ships punched through Valkyrie defenses. Allied vessels from 12 species supported them. The orbital platforms fell first, then the space stations. Then the defensive satellites that ringed the planet. On the 8th day, the last Valkyrie warship was destroyed. Admiral Grace Kim watched from her command center on Earth. She was tired. The war had aged her in ways she had not expected. But she felt no joy in the victory. There would be no celebration when this was over. Just relief that it was finally done. Admiral, her aide said, we're receiving a transmission from Valkyr Prime. It's the Queen. Grace nodded. Put it through. The face of the Valkyrie Queen appeared on the screen. She was old. Her carapace cracked and faded. She had ruled her species for 300 years, and she had never known defeat until now. Admiral Kim, the Queen said, her voice translated by computer. We wish to discuss terms of surrender. Grace looked at her without expression. There are no terms. Your military will be completely destroyed. Your spacefaring capability will be removed. Your species will be confined to your homeworld forever. These are not negotiations. These are facts. The Queen's eyes flickered with something that might have been fear. Surely there must be something we can offer. Territory, resources, knowledge. We have accumulated. Wisdom over 40,000 years. Grace reached for a button on her console. Let me show you something. She pressed the button, and the recording from the wandering star began to play. The screams of children filled the channel. The queen watched without reaction. "That is what you took from us," Grace said quietly. "That is why there will be no negotiation. That is why your species will never leave your planet again." The queen tried again. "Those were the actions of our military caste. The civilians, the children, the ordinary citizens of our world. They did nothing wrong. Will you punish them for the crimes of soldiers?" Grace was quiet for a long moment. She thought about the easy path, the one that led to total destruction. She could order her fleet to bomb Velkar Prime until nothing lived there. Many humans would support that decision. The anger was still burning, but she also thought about Maria Santos, the teacher who had survived the wandering star. Maria had sent a message to the fleet command the week before. "We won," Maria had written. "The children are safe. The Valkyrie are defeated. Please don't become like them. Please remember that we fight to protect, not to destroy. If we kill their civilians, their children, we become the monsters we hate." Grace had read that message many times, and she had made her decision. "We will not kill your civilians," she said to the queen. "Your children will be spared. Your people will live. But your military will be completely destroyed. Your factories will be dismantled. Your ships will be melted down. You will never leave your planet again. That is the price of what you did." The queen was silent for a long moment. "And if we refuse?" Grace's eyes were cold. "Then we will do what we came here to do. The choice is yours. Accept these terms and live, or refuse and die. You have 1 hour to decide." The transmission ended. 1 hour later, the Valkyrie Queen broadcast her acceptance to the galaxy. The war was over. The cleanup took months. Human soldiers landed on Velkar Prime and supervised the destruction of every warship, every weapon, every space-capable vehicle. The Valkyrie watched in silence as their empire was dismantled piece by piece. Some Valkyrie protested. Some fought back. They were dealt with quickly and without mercy. But the majority of the population accepted their fate. They had gambled on their military superiority, and they had lost. Ryan Torres personally oversaw the final demolition. He stood on a platform overlooking the largest Valkyrie spaceport as the last warship was cut into pieces. Around him, soldiers from a dozen species watched in silence. "It's over," his aide said quietly. Ryan shook his head. "It's never really over. But at least they can't hurt anyone else now." He thought about the cost of the war. Nearly 3 million humans had died. Countless more wounded. Some of the rescued children would never fully recover. The scars of this conflict would last for generations, but the Valkyrie were finished. They would live out their existence on their homeworld, watching the stars they could never reach again. They would remember what they had done and what it had cost them. Across the galaxy, celebrations were held. Species that had lost children to the Valkyrie finally found closure. Parents who had mourned for centuries could lay their grief to rest. The monster that had haunted the galaxy for 10,000 years was finally caged. Maria Santos returned to Earth with Sophie and the other surviving children from the wandering star. They settled in a small town near the ocean, far from the noise of the cities. Maria became their guardian, their teacher, their family. Sophie started speaking again. It took time, but slowly she found her voice. She talked about the attack, about her fear, about the long months of hiding. And then she talked about other things, about school and friends and dreams for the future. One evening, Maria sat on the beach watching the sunset. Sophie came and sat beside her. "Miss Santos, do you think the Valkyrie are sorry for what they did?" Maria thought about the question. "I don't know, Sophie. Some of them, maybe. Others probably just sorry they got caught." Sophie was quiet for a moment. "I'm not sorry they're stuck on their planet now. Is that wrong?" Maria put her arm around the girl. No, sweetheart. That's not wrong. What they did was terrible. They hurt so many people. It's okay to feel relief that they can't do it anymore. Sophie leaned against her. I think I want to be a teacher like you when I grow up, so I can help other kids who've been hurt. Maria smiled through her tears. I think you'd be wonderful at that. Years passed. The war became history, then legend. New generations of humans and aliens grew up hearing stories about what happened. The lesson was passed down from parents to children, from teachers to students. Some things are sacred. Some lines must never be crossed. And among all the lines that protected the galaxy, none was more absolute than this. You do not harm human children. The Galactic Council created a new law. It was called the Protection of Innocence, and it guaranteed the safety of children of all species. Violations were punished by the united force of the galaxy. No exceptions. No excuses. Humanity became guardians of this law, not through conquest or force, but through the memory of what they had done when their children were threatened. Other species knew that humans would respond the same way again if needed. That knowledge was enough. On Velkar Prime, the surviving Velkari rebuilt their civilization. They had no choice but to find new ways to reproduce without hosts from other species. It took generations, but they adapted. Some historians believe they became a better species because of it. Others disagree, but they never forgot. Every Velkari child learned the story of the war, of the humans who came, of the price their ancestors paid for their crimes. It was a warning that echoed through their culture forever. The memorial for the children of the wandering star was built on Earth, in a quiet garden overlooking the sea. It listed the names of the 340 children who were taken and the 47 who survived. Visitors came from across the galaxy to pay their respects. At the base of the memorial, an inscription was carved in every known language. We came in peace for all mankind. We left nothing of those who broke that peace. And beneath it, small words that carried the weight of everything that had happened. Never again. Maria Santos visited the memorial on the anniversary of the attack every year until she died. She would read the names, remember the faces, and say a quiet prayer for those who did not survive. Sophie grew up and became a teacher, just as she had promised. She worked with children who had experienced trauma, helping them find their voices again. She never forgot what happened to her, but she did not let it define her. Humanity continued to explore the stars. They made new friends, discovered new worlds, and built a civilization that spanned 100 systems. They remained kind and curious and peaceful, but they also remembered. Every human knew the story. Every human understood the warning: harm their children, and nothing in the universe would save you. The stars were quiet now. The children were safe. And somewhere in the galaxy, the memory of the Velkari served as a reminder of what happened when monsters forgot that some species protect their young at any cost. The story was over. The peace had come, but the lesson would last forever.